Welcome to our webinar today on service level agreements. So let's dig into our topic today. So service level agreements. I have never found a more contentious topic in recent memory. Service level agreements were supposed to provide a clear view of expected performance, yet that's not what customers tell us today. Most of what we hear today when we bring up what is your service level agreement, what are the KPIs agreed to, if you're talking to the users, they almost immediately roll their eyes and try to brush off the topic as something not discussable, because almost all the time the line of business is in contention inside the organization with IT over service level agreements. And the same thing exists outside the organization. You've contracted with a vendor, they give you a service level agreement, and typically you're in IT, though sometimes line of business goes out and does the same contract, and you're in constant contention. And all it takes is one major event to remind you that you're at the mercy of a contract, and a contract and a SLA agreement is not a proxy for insurance. They're not the same thing. So, where are we trying to get to for expected performance? Well, it's got to be defined. And the devil in the details is in the data collection, deriving facts from that data, and then understanding when you have a problem and resolving it and reporting on it after the fact. And this is where the devil in the details becomes quite complex for customers. In fact, this is where the disagreements arise, mostly in the statements about facts. The users have one view of the facts, and the provider has a totally different view. Today, if you look at the service level agreement status quo, you look at just that hallway picture. I love it because it's just the racks and racks of infrastructure. Unfortunately, because of the technology today, IT has to think this way. This is the right way for them to think, given the tool set they have. And so everything they talk about with the users is about my infrastructure. I know the availability, I know the uptime, I know the performance of my database, the throughput, the memory utilization. That's my CIO's dashboard, but it's not enough. Most of this stuff is not analytics based. Most of this stuff is not correlated. And most of the trending is not used much or implemented well. People have a hard enough time taking all of their APM tools and just getting the alerts set up properly. So really what you've got is a lot of information about infrastructure that makes infinite sense to the IT team, but doesn't really provide what the users across the hall need, and becomes the underpinnings of all the contention that will arise. Now, there's a few flavors of SLA, right? So we deal a lot with internal to internal. You're in the same organization, you're partners, right? It's IT and their line of business, and you've got the big iron software, the great software that runs applications around the world. Perhaps the most well-known product by far is SAP ERP and all the other SAP applications. We have customers with 70,000 seats of our stuff. That's really big iron software. And those service level agreements and the KPIs are as critical between these two communities as with external vendors. External vendors, there's so many examples I can think of. And the most complicated one might be Salesforce, where one of your line of businesses goes out and contracts directly for Salesforce instead of through the proxy of IT, and then runs into moments of time, perhaps not due to anything Salesforce does, but because of the nature of cloud-based implementation, and runs into unforeseen performance problems and unmeasurable metrics and KPIs that are at the mercy of a cloud somewhere. And these are all the different flavors of things that our customers run into. When you're external, you get all of the stories. I mean, let there be known, truth in advertising, right? I don't want to call them the three great lies. I'll call them the three best stories. But goodness gracious, 100% availability. I don't have anything that's 100% available in my life. Now, we try to talk about when we implement our product 100% of the transactions. But my engineering team reminds me every day that we'll never get to 100%. We always reserve the right. When it comes to availability, I think you're a lot further away, right? There is no 100% availability. There is no such thing as 100% guarantee except for the first hour of problems. What does that mean? I've seen this on so many agreements. It means that we go down for an hour every day, but then we're good for you. And then I've seen programs cast as silver, platinum, or gold, and that somehow this would give you some better benefit over the rest of our customers. They're going to get the slow ports in our network, but don't worry, you're going to get the fast ones. So let the buyer beware. An SLA, especially outward facing, is absolutely, positively not an insurance policy. And when you're dealing with an internal to external relationship, you're really at the mercy of a very complex contractual agreement. And in the final analysis, they're really not on your team. They're on somebody else's team. It's going to be very hard to manage. External cloud agreements are very difficult. People are getting better at doing them. And it's not that the vendors don't want you to succeed. It's just that cloud is new and cloud is hard. And the infrastructure that you've built up in the biggest IT data centers is wrapped around measuring the performance of on-premise. All the APM tools, all the dashboards, everything you've got is best managed for what's inside your tool shed. And that's really how it works. And in the final analysis, when you have a relationship, it's about their tools and their truth, not your experience. When the contract comes down to the hard strokes, well, here's what our tool says, and that may not be what you, the customer, experienced, and it's a constant point of contention. So really, as you start to look across your community, you've got to start addressing the challenges you face. Does an SLA really relate to the business? Because an SLA is no more than a line in the sand about the KPI that are critical to your business. And are those sufficient for you to get the right levels of operational execution to run the business successfully and profitably? Are they sufficient for you to get application adoption? What do you think happens when your availability is low? Whether or not your SLA is right, people don't adopt the applications. They move away. They go offline. They stop using the ERP system they're supposed to use, and they go into spreadsheets for a couple hours a day. We see all of this from where we sit. And then compliance. I have many customers on the phone. I would estimate 85% of you are public companies, which is an amazing metric. And you have compliance issues wherever you are in the world. There are lots of laws about compliance, and these laws require that you maintain the availability of your systems and keep your transactions running through them. If you don't, you won't get there. And the most important piece of this, really, if you ask a CIO or a line of business exec, whether they're on the same side of the table or they're across the table, they each want to be satisfied. They each want their team members to be satisfied. And that's where the greatest and most unfortunate impact seems to happen, is that satisfaction levels are low in the area of SLA. People are just really unhappy, and they feel that what you say you're doing versus what you said you'd do versus what they're getting are all different things. Perception is reality. Example, you tell me I've got performance. I'm telling you I saved this transaction. Now it's gone. Okay? Well, did you save it? I said I saved it. We don't know. Phantom performance problems. I'm getting horrible performance. But our APM tools say this is what you're getting. Well, Mr. Customer can look at their desktop and say, that's not what I'm getting. I don't know what you're measuring, but on my desktop, it takes 4 seconds just for the screens to build out. What are you guys seeing back there in the data center? And all of these problems, cloud delivery, and the tools that you have are not able to measure SLA properly. And so it clouds delivery on multiple fronts, and it impacts satisfaction, and it impacts performance, and it creates a constant barrage of activity for people on the IT service desk. IT service desk gets hit with all of this, and it's because you don't have the right visibility and the right tools. In the final analysis in the enterprise, right, it's about the users. Now, if you think back to that chart I had with the huge wall of equipment, right, everything there was about the infrastructure. And you'd say, well, our SLA is all about infrastructure. You know, you're very smart technologists. You're wiring your infrastructure, and that's what it's about. But unfortunately, You cannot bring your SLA and KPIs successfully to bear for your customers unless you understand the user perspective. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because what they are seeing is not what you're giving them. So some new tools have come out in the APM world. We call it user experience management, very basic user experience management. Unfortunately, basic user experience management is a short bridge. It's not really a bridge to the user experience, it's a pier. You walk out 30 feet, but when you take the next step, you're going to fall in the water. And the reason is that if you want to understand the true experience for an enterprise application, whatever it is, let's take SAP ERP or SAP Financials or HR or business objects, you need every transaction. You need to know everything that user's doing, every button, every switch. And these basic tools let you manually wire a transaction or two, create a robot, or synthesize something that kind of tells you across the network something's wrong. And then the vendors try to help you correlate this back to some underlying cause. And if you hold your breath, I don't want to tell you how blue you're going to get waiting for that to happen. So the bottom line is that the tool set out there in the APM world is insufficient to tell you what's going on with your service level agreements. It just doesn't do it. Customized measurement tools are even worse. And so the bottom line is that you don't know what's happening at the desktop with your users. You have insufficient data. And what one of our customers said to me that struck a chord is we're pretty much flying blind. Other than what we hear from our APM tools about infrastructure and what our IT service desk tells us, sometimes a week later they figure out what all these calls were about, we just don't have the data. The users see their desktop, we really don't, right? The basic UEM tools simulate this and that, but they just don't tell you what's happening to John Smith, or what's happening to the managers in Malaysia, or what's happening to the data center in Omaha, or what's happening with all of the different users in accounting in Riyadh. It doesn't work that way, and you're missing key variables that you just can't get. So what comes to you is the expectation gap. Users start to see an expectation gap, and it becomes a joke. Well, this is what IT says, this is what they're supposed to do, but we don't get it, and we can never solve this problem. My system is slow, they're losing data, they're telling me my performance is good, but I know it isn't. The IT service desk continues to get pounded, reputation suffers, and the contention affects satisfaction. And you know what? When you have a line of business that's got to book, $200 million this quarter, and these issues get in the way of transactions or business close, if you're in IT and you're explaining, you're losing. If you're explaining, you're losing. You don't want to be explaining. You want to have all the information, and the truth be known is you want to be ahead of the curve. You don't want to be reacting. You want to be proacting. And this is really where IT is today. IT drives down the road with these tools that look at the infrastructure, and they're blindsided by a barrage of things that are happening at the user desktop. They turn around and the windshield's broken time and time again, and they don't see it a foot before it happens most of the time. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they can see trending. It's very hard with APM tools, but sometimes some of the smart systems analysts figure out how to see some things before they happen. But if you look at our survey on APM tools, you'll find that most of the time that just doesn't happen. And so IT, respectfully submitted, is forced to play defense every day in react mode, and then you're explaining, which means you're losing. So best practices and new technologies now position a different world. You can get rid of this visibility gap in IT, and you can resolve the expectation gap in the user community, or at least close it. What you need when you look out your windshield as you drive your car is you need to see way down that road, and when problems are coming, you need to work with them. And so the goal is, for best practice, how can we, increase satisfaction, optimize the performance of the business, and really deliver value because operations go better. And so SLA works best and most accurately with a view from the desktop. And that's where technology is changing everything. Now, let me frame this opportunity. I'll ask you some questions and you'll see right away where the answers come from. Do you know what the average percentage or even the number of system errors that you have in your production deployments for your big applications? Do you know what they are, right? Do you know what the number of user errors might be? Now, I know you can't correlate this percentage unless you have both numbers, so my questions are a little unfair. I can tell you that when I ask this question of CIOs in some of the biggest companies in the world, respectfully submitted, the smartest of them and the smartest people on the service desk and the smartest systems programmers will give me this answer at best. Today, in our CA or HP or BMC remedy system, we had 1,200 errors, of which we know 47% are system, and we identified another 200 errors that were low impact through our APM tools, and that is the best you can get. Everything else is user error that takes a week or two to thresh out, or sometimes you just never know what they were, but they went away. If you're using this technology today, you're going to have a different answer. You're going to know that 90% of the errors out there are user errors, respectfully submitted. We love our users, but these are facts that we find over and over. And if you're looking at a real-time dashboard to the enterprise using these advanced measurement tools to drive your SLA metrics, you're going to see that today you didn't have 1,200 errors reported to the IT service desk. You had 11,000 errors, of which 1,200 were reported, and the remainder were not. 1 in 8 user errors was not reported, yet remains a source of dissatisfaction and potential contention. And then you still have the errors you found with your APM tools deep in the infrastructure. And that's where the technology is today at the leading edge. Less than 1% of the customers in the world have this. We work with hundreds, but there's tens and tens of thousands of you out there. And this is new age. It's not just understanding the performance of the infrastructure. It's understanding the performance of the infrastructure individually at every desktop, right to the moment the last item on a screen is filled. And it's understanding the performance of the user. Every user error, every one, every mistake they make, every master data error, and having all that visible to the help desk. And that starts to change the way you can manage your SLAs. That starts to bring forward a sea change in the way that IT and line of business and vendors can partner together. It's a very different world, but 99.6% of you do not have this technology in-house today. Now, if you step back and you say, well, what's going on? It's a new view towards where user experience management has now gone. We're one of the very few vendors in the world that has an enterprise class product which lets you see each desktop. I know at this IP address, this is the actual performance you experienced, and it's not an HTTP stream. I know when your thick client filled the screen and really responded, right? I know through your virtualized Citrix desktop. I know through your GUI, right? So that's the step one. Step two is that user performance management. That's the big deal, because now you're also tracking the user errors. There is more ROI and benefit to find in remediating the performance of users today than in that infrastructure. You have virtualized it. You have made it redundant. You have wrapped right around the pole 9 times. You have got backup and all these things instrumented, but yet your users are still in the same state they were 20 years ago. You train them, you give them the same training courses. You don't know really where the errors are. Well, today, now with this technology, you do, and it's a big change. I'll show you how it will change the CIO dashboard and how it will change SLA for you. It's really a new class of real-time performance measurement, but it measures both the applications at the desktop and the user's performance. And this is really new ground. We're the only vendor doing this for user performance right now. And we bundle this with our basic UEM tool because it's so compelling and because it drives so much value for our customers. If you think about what is this stuff, it is an integrated analytics framework that shows both the application performance at the desktop as well as the user performance. And it allows you to now deliver a very precise understanding of service level agreement, right? I know exactly your pain. I feel your pain. I know at your desktop exactly what's going on, because at the service desk, you can get to these same dashboards. You can open them up and see, wow, you know what? You didn't save that document. You're right, sometimes problems can happen, but we can see you didn't save it, because inside here, in this user experience management dashboard, you can click down and see their workflow and see a compacted form of what they did. I can see that you had a system error. You're absolutely right. The search function didn't execute, and now I've got your workflow, and I can take this and bring it right into my IT service desk and send it right over to functional support to figure out what's going on. And the benefits for this, let's go beyond the SLA. Let's just go beyond the fact that our internal customers are going to be a lot happier. We are reducing the number of calls and the length of calls and the interrogation at the help desk, because all this data is there. This data that drives this SLA is now available for you to see. So it really changes a bunch. And it also takes IT service to a bigger place, because now you have more resources to start thinking proactively. Now, if you think proactively, now you're looking through that view that we showed before. It's the windshield down the road. You're not getting hit. You're now looking at all these other transactions that create the expectation gap between you and your users. You know about the 7 or 8 transactions that they don't report. And now you can start to close that gap. Your CIO or your line of business exec can have a dashboard that says, here are clusters of problems that users are experiencing that don't impact the SLA of the infrastructure, but boy, we can see their pain, and here's their frustration, and let's try to remediate these things so that we get better satisfaction across all of our team environment. And so SLA and visibility and having the right KPI start to flow through into benefits everywhere. So really, what's unique? I mean, at a technology level, I got 19 emails peeking at me here. People want to know about the technology, right? So what we're doing is we're monitoring each desktop in real time from a desktop agent. Desktop agent is the only architecture that's going to work with GUI, offline, virtualized like Citrix, or anything else you've got. And it's also going to work for cloud when you need to be there. There's no other way to do it, right? And 99% of the tools probably don't architect that way, right? From a user perspective, you're just getting stuff that you never had before. So the first thing you're getting is you're going beyond basic UEM. You are not just seeing some robot or some simulation or some single scripted transaction. You are seeing for every user desktop the performance of every transaction, every screen, every button. Out of the box you get it. Carefully submitted, 99.9% all there, right? And pick any of your applications in your SAP world. Let's just use SAP as a great example of a leading enterprise app, and one that will stay that way for many years for sure. And so all of that stuff is there. So that's the first tier of what's new. The basic APM tools don't do this. They don't tell you about every desktop, about every user, and they make you do the work. You can do this manually. If you're in IT, you probably know how to do it. But you know how long it will take you to wire and script every transaction in SAP ERP? The other thing that technology does that's really important is that when the customer builds custom transactions, and if you're running SAP ERP as a great example, you have SCADA customized transactions. If they're built in the SAP framework, we automatically pick them up. Automatically, out of the box, you get everything. So if you're using a scripted tool, you start to find that you're in a professional services exercise of biblical proportion. You're going to have to call your favorite consultant and probably throw $50,000, $100,000 over the transom just to get all the work you need done in perpetuity. With this technology, it comes out of the box. So now at the infrastructure level, every single thing is instrumented. We give you data on every desktop, but wait, there's more. We also instrument the user. We have every piece of their workflow captured, every error captured, user error, system error, and even master data error, right? We can see those things. So this data presents a view to a dashboard that your organization respectfully submitted has not had before, enables you to change the face of your internal customer service and bring a vision to IT that has not existed in the market today. It's pretty simple at a basic level. We connect to all of the sources of transactions automatically, everything that's happening in the application. APM kind of goes broad if you think about APM tools, but you got to script things that you got to script, right? This technology is delivered app by app. So you want to cover your SAP world, you pick the modules you need, and it's deep. It's everything, right? Then the analytics finds everything that you need to know. It pretty much discovers opportunity and frames it in the dashboards. It's not a proprietary dash. It's in standard BI environments like Business Objects or even MicroStrategy. And so, it's flexible in that you can export that data and do other things with it. And finally, the most important piece, I think, is you can use this data and make it actionable. You can now measure your service level agreements with clarity that you've never had before. Mr. Customer, I know exactly what you experienced on your desktop, not an average value, not some HTTP stream. What you experienced right down to the last moment that your thick client on that web JavaScript piece had to build out. And that's a very different perspective. And most of you are not anywhere near this capability today. The technology is very deep, and rather than dig into these pieces of it module by module, I want to get you to the demo because I think that'll speak 10,000 words. But if you're using this technology, for example, SAP customers buy this direct from SAP as SAP User Experience Management. And they have all of the application usage, module, screen, transactions, buttons, all the custom apps, system error, user error. It's just all there by IP. You can sort it by users, by category, by geography. It's analytics, so you can click and dive and search. And for countries or areas where privacy laws don't allow, we can abstract the data when we set up so that you can see the trends, but respect the privacy of the individuals involved. And this is important in some markets like Germany and other places in Europe. So you have all the things you need to get the full benefits, yet adapt to the privacy laws. In terms of architecture, it's really simple. What could be better than something that can save you lots of money, not impact your operational environment, not touch the back end, implement in a few weeks, and provide the benefits we described? There is no integration with your back end. It's a lightweight desktop client. We've installed multitudes of these. It's less than 1% of the processor footprint that it uses, and it works great. It's cloud ready, so any way that you need to go, we're able to go with you. And this product is in production in sites with just massive quantities of users. We just went into production in one of the top 10 pharmaceuticals in the world with 70,000 plus users. And, so our technology is deployed and proven. And at this point, I think the risk is close to as low as you'd ever want it to be. Really, and as we get to the close here and head to the demo, you can start to see the powerful vision. Now, the best perspective on this vision is the one that SAP has built out. SAP has assembled a vision for the market that no other vendor right now can meet. SAP has assembled a view towards a 360-degree perspective on your internal customer that doesn't exist anyplace else. Today, in 99% of your organizations, this is really what you have, right? You have all of this infrastructure tied together with these APM tools, and you can see your performance, but it's really at the infrastructure level. You may have a basic UEM tool, but it doesn't tell you what's happening for each of those users. It's simulated. It's robotic. It's only on one transaction to maybe tell you something when things are getting really bad, right? And all that stuff flows to the CIO, but then you've got your IT service desk and your functional support. dealing with the 91.6%, whether they're reported or not. And this is the state of the union today, and you can do much better than this. SAP's vision takes customer service to a place right now where Oracle and Microsoft really cannot compete. And the vision is that SAP has wrapped this together to combine user performance and infrastructure performance to give you a view of the true activity in your enterprise that's never been there before. You'd say, wait a minute, how can this be, right? Technology on the infrastructure side has been going crazy the last 20 years. RAID and virtualization. But think about support, think about training, think about the interaction with your most valuable asset, your users. And that's the asset that impacts the perspective on SLA and how it hasn't changed much in 20 years. What do you do with your new users? We put them in a training course. It's the same training course we use all the time. What do you do after 9 months? We refresh them. Who do you refresh? Well, pretty much everybody, right? Everything is the same. Change management. What's happening the first 30 days when you roll out this code? Well, we're going to have infrastructure problems, and we're going to see those. But do you know, most of your change management problems with a new release are about the users. They're confused. They're not adopting it. These new custom transactions you did that you thought were great, hey, guess what? They're not so great. They're confusing people. And you have no visibility until it smacks in to the IT service desk or until the line of business executive walks into the CIO's office and says, this new release you rolled out is killing me. It's the last week in the quarter and I can't get my transactions done. And we hear this all the time. So this view of the world, now you can see all of the system era, the desktop perspective for execution, and all of the places that this will impact functionality in a very objective way, in a very quantitative way. So now you can target education and training. Not only do I know what my SLA is, but I know the areas in which users are having problems. Now I can target training and save money. I can bring my center of excellence closer to bringing the application adoption levels where they need to be, because now my facts and my self-help and my SAP experts know where the problems are. Functional support costs can be reduced and effectiveness can be increased. This is a huge ROI area between service desk and functional support. We have customers that are saving $1 million or $2 million per year in operational benefits because they know what their SLAs are and they know the cause of all of these problems. Change management is a huge pain point for CIOs and users. Everybody hates a new big release. And now you're not waiting till things hit the windshield. You're seeing as far as you can, every second, real time, to every error in your enterprise, and you don't need to wait until it hits your IT service desk. And finally, for line of business, you're seeing your application adoption. We paid $22 million to implement this ERP system. Our best consultant, we paid $12 million to help us get it done. How is it getting used? Is it getting used effectively? And now you can see everything. And this is the vision that this technology, which amazingly starts with getting your SLAs correct and accurate, and then exploiting that data across this dashboard to give you a very different view of the world. And this is the vision that our biggest channel has brought to market because of their capabilities and all of their adjacent products. And SAP is implementing this vision. I have another pharmaceutical customer that has told me they are saving between $8 and $10 million in operational benefits this year because they can see the performance at the desktop and the user errors. And as they remediate those errors, the ROI is huge. Most of this stuff is lost. And it all starts with just thinking about how you're managing your service level agreements, right? So there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to transition us now to Ilya Epstein to overview the product, and I thank you for your patience with our PowerPoint today, and after Ilya, we'll move to questions. So thank you much.
And Mike, thanks for that great presentation. One additional thing that I want to add is what we're seeing in the field is that more and more support organizations are already including some type of user satisfaction index as part of their SLA. not, it is becoming a very important aspect, and this applies whether your support organization is outsourced or whether it's in-house. And of course, it's not just about user satisfaction. It's, like Mike mentioned, it's direct impact to business, because poor user experience within the application will definitely lead to poor adoption rates and poor business execution in terms of user efficiency and effectiveness within the application. So the question is, how does the NOAA data, what dashboards, what type of analysis tools can help a support organization to improve that user satisfaction and improve the impact to the business? So the first area we want to talk about is the area of proactive support. Mike talks about the visibility gap, the inability to know exactly where the users are struggling, especially in terms of response issues as it relates to the desktop, and also user-related errors. So the first place I'm going to begin, I'm going to jump into a user support dashboard, and companies that have rolled out our solution within the support organization, they would use these types of tools to be able to see exactly what is happening with the user community. So the first thing you'll see on the left side here is that we're monitoring all of the production users. This is not a synthetic monitoring. This is monitoring of all of the users in my organization. And that is how you're able to be proactive and truly understand what is happening within the user community. For any given user, you have three major metrics, including response, system and user errors, as well as user errors. Now, let's talk about briefly how the NOAA metrics are unique and why they power that use case in terms of improving the SLAs and improving the user satisfaction. For example, in the area of response, NOAA is unique in that because we're sitting on the user desktop, we're able to tell you exactly what the user is experiencing. So, for example, here for any given transaction, a T code or Z code, for example, within an SAP application or within SIBO would be the screen, you can actually see exactly what the user is experiencing. So every time they're clicking on a specific button or a link, you could see that they're waiting here, for example, 6 minutes. That's a very ineffective application for the end user to be waiting there 6 minutes, waiting for the application to respond. And what's unique about this is, in most of these instances, if you check on the server side or you check the back-end log, you don't have that end-to-end visibility. You may have some endpoint metrics, but you don't have that complete picture as to what the user has experienced. Also, Mike mentioned the fact that we correlate this data to the business process. So whether it's SAP or whether it's the SIBO application, we have this complete context as to where the error is occurring. So we know exactly which transaction, which business process, which screen within that business process the user is experiencing the problem. In the area of system-related errors, NOAA is also unique. There aren't a lot of types of errors, especially, for example, in certain applications like SIBO, where the users are offline. Some of those error messages never get registered on the back-end server. So you still have this visibility gap, even if you have implemented back-end APM type of monitoring. But then, of course, the biggest differentiator is in the user-related errors. When it comes to user-related errors, NOAA is unique in that we're capturing 100% of all of the user errors. These could be inefficiency of the user within a transaction. It could be a training gap. It could be an adoption gap. And what this allows, and we're seeing more and more, is that the support organization, even if they're not ultimately responsible to resolving a user-related problem, but now they have an efficient and effective communication channel, how they could communicate these issues to business, so you actually create a more collaborative organization. And a lot of our successful customers, like McKesson, for example, they have ongoing programs where the support organization or sustainability organization could interact with business and actually try to remove a lot of these user-related errors from circulation. So that's one area in terms of how we address and try to improve the SLAs within another, you can quickly identify all of the users that are having the same problem, be proactive about it, escalate the issue, gain information exactly as to who the users are. So, for example, here you can see a list of users that are having the same type of issue, the exact transaction or T code or business process, the screen, the exact error message, and how many times they're getting that error. That's another important aspect in terms of SLA, being able to understand the impact of any given issue so you can prioritize. So if you have an error that's impacting 50 users 200 times, you would want to be able to address it faster than some of the others. So that's another area of how NOAA could be used in a proactive monitoring and a proactive support with an ultimate goal to improve the SLA. One more area I just want to touch before we go into questions and answers is with the remaining incidents that do end up coming into remedy, that do end up coming into support organization, the goal is to be able to help the end user and get to the root cause of the problem with the least amount of interrogation. So with a NOAA solution, again, because we're monitoring all of the users all the time, you have the capability to pull off what's called the workflow. The workflow is a complete chronological, historical, step-by-step execution of a user through his experience within any target application, whether it's SAP, whether it's Siebel. So, for example, let's say the user's on the phone and he says, "I have a problem," or he opened a ticket. You could pull up that user's workflow. So I'm just going to pull up a workflow for one of the users. Let's say Howard Steele here, and you can see exactly what he did. So you don't need to ask the common questions, which usually take anywhere between 15 to 45 minutes. What transaction were you in? What screen were you on? Can you reproduce the problem? You have the entire history, step by step, of what the user has done to get to the problem. So you can see exactly which transaction they opened, which screen they navigated through, how long they stayed on that screen. Every time they get any type of error message, so they're getting a rounding rule violation, all captured. If the user is hitting an operation and the operation is taking a long time, you can actually see in line how long that operation took. So all of this information is available. You can actually export this data. You can improve your incident documentation. You can also improve your escalation process by having a clear record of what the user has done and attaching it to your support incident. You now have the ability to eliminate non-reproducible issues. So all of these things, the ability to not only proactively address problems, but also reduce the mean time to resolution